G'day mate and welcome to Factorio 2.0 with me, Jitty. Now the NDA has dropped, so let me finally answer the question. The one that I've been DM'd, the one that I've been asked during live streams, or the one that's probably on your mind, and that is, what is space age worth the price? And after at least 100 hours in the DLC, I can now answer that question. But before I do that, let me ask you a question, and that is, well, can I borrow a like? I just like to borrow a like. I like to borrow a like early in the video. If you're not happy with the video, you didn't enjoy the fact that I kept this spoiler free, then by all means you can have your like back. But in the meantime, can I just borrow it? So let's talk about what you're actually getting. First off, you're going to be getting, well, everything in the Factorio 2.0 upgrade, which I've actually got a whole separate video on because there's an awful lot in that particular upgrade, and you're going to get that whether you buy the DLC or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link that up in the top right hand corner, down in the description, pin comment, all that sort of stuff, if you want to know what's coming with 2.0 no matter what. As for the DLC itself, you're actually getting 3 items. Well, 3 different mod packs. You're actually getting, well, the elevated rails quality, and of course the space age itself with the 4 different planets, the space platforms, all that sort of stuff. So let's start off with talking about the rails, because I think the rails are pretty easy to cover, and I actually have a couple of rails over here. So we have, well, the T intersection that we've had forever, and now with the elevated rails mod, you can build a elevated version, which is good for going across water, also good for going across other surfaces that we're going to be covering, you know, as we work our way through this video, but also means you can build a bridge. You're going to build a bridge from one line over the other, which also means you can do some interesting things like, well, have a non-blocking T-junction, that is, well, a T-junction that doesn't have any chain signals, so trains should never have to stop for another train to pass. Also means that if you wanted to go down the route of having like all your outpost trains, or the ones carrying around, or running on, you know, raised rails, lower rails, whatever you want, and want to have all your other trains, or the ones moving around actual finalized resources, things have been smelted, things have been processed, on the other type of rail you now can. You can have 2 entirely separate rail networks without a problem. So that is the first thing you get. Second thing you're going to be getting is, well, quality. Quality adds a few things to the game, an awful lot of things to the game. Now, quality really comes down to your playstyle. You're either going to go for quality early, or you're going to go for quality late, and again, that's going to come down to your playstyle. What I am going to say is there are definitely some nice things to get higher quality upgrades earlier, mainly personal things that you're going to be using all the time, like a better SMG. You know, the stock SMG has a range of 18, whereas the legendary SMG has a range of 27, and I definitely like shooting the biters when they're further away. Same goes for ammo. You know, normal ammo has a range of, has a damage of, say, 20-ish for round numbers, and then legendary ammo has a range of, well, closer to 50. Again, I really like it when the biters are dead and further away from me. A couple of other things are going to be things like armor. Like I said, anything you're using personally. Your normal power armor has, well, 30 extra inventory slots, plus has an equipment grid of 10 by 10. If you get the legendary power armor, well, it has an inventory bonus slot size of 75, also has an equipment grid of 15 by 15, which is an awful lot more space for you to put a whole lot more stuff in. So that's something you want to consider. You know, personal robots, batteries in your armor, roboports, personal roboports, that is, those sorts of things. Definitely recommend. You're probably going to want to upgrade the quality when and where you can. As for everything else, look, it depends on your playstyle. You either want to go all quality early or all quality late and really sink some time and some effort into it. Next up, we have, well, the actual Space Age mod itself. The Space Age DLC, the thing that we're all excited for, the thing we want to talk about, and, well, the first thing we need to talk about is the space tugs. The space tugs, the space platforms, they're really the tugboats of space, and they bring a whole new design challenge. You know, first off, you need to manufacture things in space, which is going to be not exactly easy to start with. On top of that, you need to gather resources from space to build in space. Sure, you could launch rockets up and down, and that's perfectly viable, but generally you want to grab the resources from space. It does bring a new challenge with it, and that is you're very limited on storage, because you can't build any boxes up here. You can't have a storage box or a steel box or any sort of box whatsoever. You only have, well, the space platform, and what you can fit in the space platform. Sure, it can be upgraded, you can give it more size and more space, but yeah, it's something that you need to consider, and it is a whole new design challenge. Also, on top of that, you can have, well, interplanetary logistics, and that means you can have a couple of different ships, a couple of varieties of ships, you know, things that move around in a hurry, also things that don't move around in a hurry but move an awful lot of stuff, because you are going to have, in some cases, a couple of minutes, maybe longer, of well, lead time. wait time between one delivery and the next. So it's something that you need to design around. Again, it's an interesting design challenge, a very interesting design challenge, and one I've thoroughly enjoyed so far. Next up, we have, well, your planets. We have got 4 planets to pick from, and let's talk about Vulcanus first. Vulcanus is, well, it's an interesting planet on the fact that we get the Foundry. The Foundry is a very, very powerful machine, and the most important thing about it is it uses lava. It pulls lava directly out of the ground, and from that we can produce, well, molten iron and also molten copper. Now, with those, you can pretty much build everything that you have on Narvis already. You can also gather oil here without too much hassle. It is a little bit of a different way of doing things, but you can also get oil here, which means you could move your whole production to Vulcanus. You've got to remember, lava is an infinite resource, so it does mean there's a whole lot less outposting. As for the unique buildings, because you do get a couple of unique buildings on this planet, one of them is, of course, the Foundry, which we've already spoken about, and the other one is the large miners. The big mining drills, which also come with an built-in 50% productivity, which is actually compounded with any research you do into mining productivity. So you end up with a situation where you're using less and less resources all the time, which means less and less outposting, which I have to admit I'm a giant fan of. Now, with that out of the way, let's look at, well, our next planet. And I'm going to choose Fulgora because it's one we know most about from the Friday Facts. Fulgora has a couple of interesting design features. And, oh, actually, no, Vulcanus, I should mention, because it actually leads into Fulgora. Vulcanus, you need to make sure that things don't back up. Things don't block, things don't stop moving, because, for argument's sake, you have too many waste resources. Because there are going to be a little bit of waste made by the way this manufacturing works. Yeah, on Narvis, a sign of a backed up belt is definitely a good sign. It's definitely a sign that everything is running perfectly. On Vulcanus, it's a sign that maybe it could be trouble. Maybe you need to find a different way to make stone, because, of course, like I said, you can make iron and copper and also stone here for free from lava. So it's something that you need to be careful of. It's something you need to design around. It's something you need to consider. But it's a learning lesson for Fulgora. Fulgora, being that it's a different planet, a very, very different planet. On Fulgora, you actually mine, well, scrap out of the ground. It's all covered up, of course it is. There we go, we got a little bit of scrap over here. So you mine up scrap, and scrap you uncraft into the scrap recycling recipe. You put in scrap and you get, well, a percentage chance of a whole bunch of junk. Now, all those bits of junk you can then uncraft again to bring them back to their even more core resources, if they have core resources. Otherwise, well, they just get destroyed. In saying that, every single time you uncraft something, well, you only have a 25% chance of that item being, well, its components being returned. That's much more accurate. So it's something where you've got to play Factorio backwards. Rather than trying to craft items, you're trying to uncraft your way back to having some sort of raw resource, or at least all the components you need to craft something adjacent, something you don't have available directly from the scrap. It also means that backed up belts, like I have right here, are actually a really bad sign, because it means every other belt is not moving, which means this is bound to run out of something sooner or later, because, well, a belt is backed up. It really makes you think about a different design principle and a different design philosophy when it comes to this particular planet. On top of that, power is going to be sacred on Fulgora, because, well, you don't really have access to water, which does mean making power from anything steam is going to be very, very difficult. There is lightning on the planet. I'm in map view, so it doesn't go off too often, which is, trust me, a godsend. But here we get lightning. Lightning can be captured from the lightning rods, and then we can turn that into power. It does mean that you need to be considerate about how much power you're using. Oh, there's some lightning right now. There we go. There's some lightning right now. It's going to recharge all the accumulators. It's going to keep things running. Also means that you need to really be careful about how you're managing your power and make sure you don't use quite as much. Also, it probably means you can have separate power networks over the planet due to, well, not being able to get large power poles between two islands. So again, something you need to consider. The whole lot might not run at the same speed. You will have access to heavy oil here, plenty of heavy oil in the sea, because all the sea is made of heavy oil, but you need water to do cracking, and as I said, water is not exactly a common resource here. All right, on to Gleba. Now, Gleba is a very special planet. It is a very vibrant planet. A very vibrant planet. Very, very vibrant planet. Oh, actually, Fulgora. Fulgora, I forgot to mention that the magic building. The magic building we get here is the recycler. The recycler which you can use to uncraft any item, which is going to be helpful for, well, the quality tree if you want to wander down the quality tree. This is sort of the point where you can start looking at the quality tree and looking at actually getting things upgraded to the next level with a little bit more force and a little bit less chance. On top of that, you get access to the electromagnetic plant, which can craft anything that really has copper wire as a component or a subcomponent. So it means all your green circuits, or your red circuits, or your blue circuits become that much easier to craft, because this comes with a crafting speed of 2 and an inbuilt productivity bonus of 50%. So it does mean that all those items become a hell of a lot easier to craft in the long run. All right, Gleba. Gleba, as I said, it's a special planet. The fact that it's so colorful, also the fact that everything comes from plants. Yeah, you need to plant trees, and then you need to harvest trees. I know trees are the real enemy, but that is how this game works, at least here on Gleba. And then you need to process everything. Now, from what you've learned of the previous 2 planets, where you don't want anything back up, this has become even more critical on this planet, because everything spoils in time. If I look at, no, that's not going to spoil. That'll spoil. If I look at nutrients, we can see it has a freshness, which is counting down very, very, very quickly. Yeah, it's something you need to consider, that everything is going to spoil if the belts ever stop moving, which means you need to be very careful and very purposeful. Everything that you make on Narvis, you can make on Gleba, but it's all going to come from, well, one plant or the other plant, or some combinations of the 2 plants. So, yeah, planting is going to suddenly become very, very, very important. On top of that, I should mention that there are new friends on this planet, new friends to keep you entertained. On Vulcanus, there's also new friends. They are the Demolishers. They are big and mean, and a different enemy to take down. A very different enemy to take down. They have a whole lot of hit points and a whole lot of regen, but yeah, they can be taken down. Whereas Gleba, they tend to strafe you. They tend to walk around you rather than taking you head on, which is a big difference from both Vulcanus and, of course, Narvis. But yes, you're going to have a whole separate problem of having to deal with a whole lot of items that are going to go bad sooner or later. Last planet we have is Aquilo, is a frozen hell. Absolutely is a frozen hell, and it brings a new problem that if anything gets too cold, your factory literally freezes over. Yeah, solar power is an option in theory, but I have legendary solar panels here which can produce 150 kilowatts worth of power, and on my power network I have, well, 0. I have 0. It probably doesn't help that it's nighttime, but at max productivity I have 3 kilowatts worth of power. There's not a lot of power here. You need to find different ways to make power. The good news is it's a frozen hell. It's very, very similar to C Block. And the fact that you need to make more land to build more factory. On top of that, you need to keep the whole factory warm by running heat pipes everywhere, which brings you a new challenge where every single machine, every single belt, every single inserter, every single assembler needs to have a heat pipe adjacent to it. So we've gone from Vulcanus, where life was pretty easy and you got a whole lot of resources very quickly, very easily, onto Fulgora, where you got a whole lot of resources very easily and very quickly. They might not necessarily be the resources you want, and you've had to perfect not letting belts back up and stop working. And then we've moved on to Gleba, where, well, we've really had to fine tune out, don't let belts back up and stop moving, otherwise your contents of your belts rot. And when they rot, they're probably useless. And then we've moved on to Aquilo, where you can actually finally let your belts stop moving as long as they're not fuel belts. Because if the fuel belts stop moving and therefore you don't have fuel, then the heat turns off. And the heat turns off, hell freezes over, as does your factory. So it's something you need to consider. It's something you need to plan for. It's something you need to keep moving and make sure that also you keep the lights on. The good news is, being that it's a frozen world, water is no longer a problem on this planet. You're going to have all the water in the world to make all the power in the world. Gleba is much the same. There is plenty of swamplands out here, so you have plenty of access to water, which means nuclear power is a real option again. Yep, there we go. Nuclear power plant is a real option again. Solar also works quite well on this particular planet. Aquilo, less so. Yeah, nuclear is going to be probably your top option. In saying that, you need to ship nuclear fuel back from Narvis, because you can't make uranium here. So again, it comes back to that logistics challenge of having to make sure things move around and keep moving around. Now, I'm trying to keep this video spoiler free, which means I'm not going to go into the other content. The other content that hasn't been covered by the Friday Facts. There will be a video very, very soon covering a lot more in-depth of what else has been added to 2.0 that hasn't been covered in a Friday Facts previously and hasn't been, well, shared prior to now. But with all that said and done, I'm going to ask you now the question. Now you know a little bit more about what is in the DLC, what is coming. I ask you back the original question you asked me. Is it worth the $35? I can definitely say the amount of time I've spent, well, just rebuilding on Narvis with the new quality of life changes. It's been an absolute pleasure to build on Narvis, and the different challenges from the different planets being, well, Vulcanus, like I said, unlimited resources, but you need to sort of make sure belts are mostly moving. There are exceptions, but definitely mostly moving. Fulgora, definitely have to make sure that everything keeps moving at all times. Also, where you can really start digging into quality, as you can see we've done right here. Onto Gleba, well, the belts can never stop flowing. If the belts stop flowing, it means they're all going to rot. When they all rot, you need to start from scratch. And then Aquilo is a frozen wasteland. Yeah, frozen wasteland is going to require a whole lot of heating pipes, which means you're going to need a whole lot of copper. The good news is, hopefully you've got Vulcanus set up with a whole lot of copper to build a whole lot of heat pumps. But with all that said and done, I'm going to leave this particular video here. If you want to know more about Factorio 2.0, or you want to join me for Let's Play, by all means, the subscribe button if you haven't already. And with all that said and done, I'm going to be calling this video here. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Do hope you've enjoyed, and I hope to see you in space in the not too distant future. Bye.